Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, let me start again. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Brownlee, Principal Assessor for Northborough. Uh, Since this is a Zoom meeting and it's live until executive session, I am going to read to you about the rules of the Zoom meeting, and then I will do a roll call vote where I'll say your name and you will tell us that you're present. So pursuant to Governor Baconer's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Elderly and Disabled Taxation Fund Committee will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public is permitted. This meeting will be live streamed, but will have no option for public participation. To view or listen, you can go to the YouTube link provided on our agenda, which is posted on the town's website. So with me today, we have our Brian Fernandez, who is hosting the meeting. He joined our office 6 months ago as assessor data collector.
Present.
Thank you. And Lisa Trost, who is our treasurer collector.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. This is my first meeting, so be interesting to see how this goes. Excited to be on board, though.
Terrific, terrific. And then there are currently three residents on this committee, and two of them are here now, and I think one will be joining us later. So hi, Jennifer Critchlow.
Hello.
And hi, Muriel. Muriel, I don't know how to say your last name.
Swanor. Swanor.
Swanor. Okay. Hi, Muriel.
Hi, present.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes from last May?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So for those of us who were at that meeting, are there any corrections that need to be made? Any discussion or comments we want?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no issues.
Okay, then I'd like to entertain a motion, and then one of you will do the motion. Entertain a motion to accept the EDTF committee's minutes from May 19th, 2021 as presented.
I'll make a motion.
And someone will second it?
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor, Muriel?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Julie? Aye. Thank you. Okay, and then our treasurer, Lisa, is going to present. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at, no, this is right. Is going to present an update on the committee's finances.
Okay, so I had to speak with Jason just to get a better idea of what our balance is, just to confirm. First of all, I'll go through the year-to-date revenue. From the EDTF tax checkoff revenue, we had received $11,026.35. And from the gift investment income, we didn't receive revenue from the donations and gifts, but we received the investment income of $54.82. And then we actually took a small loss on the investment income for the tax checkoff account, $128.57 negative on that.
Okay.
Which leaves us with a balance, and this is as of 12/31/21. Jason has the books reconciled through then, and our balance in the EDTF accounts is $58,398.14.
I'm sorry, will you say that one more time, please?
Sure. $58,398.14.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I'm going to wait just a minute.
Cynthia.
Hi, Cindy.
Yay!
Okay.
Yay.
Of all mornings to have problems.
You did it. You did it.
Sorry about that, guys. Sorry I'm late.
There's no problem at all. All we've done is open the meeting.
Great.
We did a roll call vote, so I'll just have you say aye when I introduced one of our committee members, resident Cynthia Moore.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Entering the meeting at 9:12, it looks like. We already voted to approve the minutes from last year. Okay, you're good with that, great. And Cynthia, I'll introduce you. Brian Fernandez is hosting this for us. He joined the assessing team 6 months ago.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Brian. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And Lisa is our new treasurer collector.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to meet you.
And you've met me and Jennifer and Muriel. So, and then Lisa did an update, and I think Lisa, you can tell Cynthia that your update again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So, do you want the quick version or the line by line? Okay, the quick version is the balance as of 12/31/21. And I confirmed this with Jason, the financial director, is 58,398.14. So 58,398.14.
Super. And that is as far as we've gotten. So, gosh. Okay. So now we want to review the application criteria. And I've sent you a ton of stuff and I have it all before me, except I forgot to print my own copy of the application. But I have one here. All right. So if we could just look at the application together. I didn't know, kind of wish that I had written better notes about our thoughts and ideas last year when we were discussing. But we have the 4 specific items that we want to talk about, as well as other things. So there's the, let me start over. So this committee has some leeway. We set these guidelines ourselves. They are not state mandated like other forms of tax relief, the exemptions that we do. And as we've worked together, we have looked at for several years, we've been looking at all the scenarios of different people's stories and why they might need help and what their income is, what their assets is, what their age is, if they're disabled, if how long they've lived in town. These are all the kinds of things that we have as listed on our eligibility qualifications. So I'd kind of just like to open up the floor. I don't have a specific way chosen to discuss any of these, and I don't think it matters what order that we do that in. So I guess I'll just list the first one and see if we want to talk about that. It says you must own and occupy your residence in Northborough for at least the past 5 consecutive years. Let me put it this way. When we set up these rules, well, they were set up long before me. When these rules were set up, I think it's my understanding that these are the basic guidelines so that we know who should be filling these out. But other stories come to us and they may or may not meet every one of the 4 or 5 qualifications that we have. And the committee has voted to override some things. So with that in mind, there's kind of two ways to look at it so far that I can think of. And one is like, what do we want our basic guidelines to be? And then knowing that we have the flexibility to kind of ignore things sometimes. So does anyone want to change owning and occupy in Northborough for the past 5 years?
Could I just ask a question, Julie?
Absolutely.
So that doesn't mean that you have to have been at the same place for 5 years, or could somebody have? Okay, so somebody could have had two different places. They could have had a house and then moved to a condo or something like that.
Yes, or
right?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's true in general for, and that does happen. That's true in
Yes.
general for all the exemptions. So I'm comfortable saying yes to that.
Okay, so it could be two different residences. Okay, and then the owner occupied status. So the owner occupied status is 5 years. It's not a resident for 5 years. It's an owner occupied status for 5 years. Is that true?
Well, I don't see the difference I don't understand the difference. that
So
you're
maybe
saying.
you were a resident for Northborough renting for 3 years, and then maybe you did a rent to own house or something like that. I don't even know if they still have those, but like you did a rent to own house.
We did have one of those in our years here.
Yeah, and so you've rented to own for 3 years, and then the 4th year mark you actually took it over, and 2 years later you had a terrible car accident, and now you're disabled and your life is falling apart. And so so in the course of 5 years you've been a resident, but 3 of them you weren't an owner.
Okay,
But you were a resident. So I just wondered about that.
In terms of rent to own, that's a great, I'm going to talk about that specifically and then go a little more generally. In terms of rent to own, for the example that we had, that I know of where that happened, the committee has the authority to say, yeah, that's good enough. For someone who is renting an apartment in Northborough and then bought a condo or a house, so no, it doesn't fall into that eligibility, but it can be overridden by vote of the committee. So then from my point of view, and this could be very different from your points of view, which is great. The more brainstorming, the better. From my point of view, since we can override it, having the basic eligibility of 5 years kind of, I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't know if it discourages people from applying, or if people who we want to apply, or if it discourages people. We get a lot of people who make, in my mind, a lot of money and have high value houses who come in and are upset about their taxes and want to apply for things. So
I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about this particular item, but I would like to make a motion on it, but I'm happy to hold until discussion's all over.
I might just throw this out for discussion. Maybe if we would change the wording on A to you must own or occupy a residence in Northborough. Would that cover the other instances that may come up in question?
One question I have, because I'm brand new to this, so maybe this is already established, is what about a landlord? Like he might live in Framingham and own a house, but he rents it out. So he doesn't actually reside in Northborough, but the tenant does.
So the reason, so reducing the taxes, so he reduces it for the tenant. So first of all,
would he reduce it for himself? I mean,
exactly.
We don't know if he's really going to give them a kickback. He might just say, hey, great, I got to reduce.
Right.
bills.
We wouldn't, right. This committee doesn't help renters.
Okay.
And right, like you said, we don't know what the landlord would do with it. The landlord himself would be out, because even if a landlord, not all landlords would be out if they live in the property, but a landlord, anybody who owns a second property doesn't meet our qualifications.
Right.
Because that's a huge asset.
So then we can't put or there, because then that would include the landlord, own or occupy, right?
No, it must be own and occupy.
Okay, gotcha.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How many people actually come in and ask that want to fill out this application?
So that's something that I want to talk about later, partly of promoting the program, but also, so most people do not know about it. It is on our big spreadsheet that we the colorful chart that we hand out with all the exemptions. And I'll talk more about this later, but one of our jobs that we haven't quite finished yet for this year is for everyone who qualifies for, the state form is called a 41C, and it's the senior exemption where they get $1,000 off. So they have to give us their asset and income information, and we go through all that, and anybody who's anywhere near the guidelines for this, then we suggest them to the EBTF.
Right.
So it's not, and prior to last year, Amy, our former treasurer, Amy, had come from a town where you had to fill out this application. We didn't even have them fill out an application before. We just used the 41C application. And I'll talk about the pros and cons of that later. We can talk about it, that. So no, people don't, but they're looking for anything.
Right.
And we guide them.
Right. So I just like wondering if most people are coming in and asking you about it, then you could say to them, just fill it out, whether they meet the guidelines or they don't meet the guidelines. If they've been here 5 years or they've been here less, just give them the application to fill out. I've been on the committee for a long time, since like 2009, 2010. And nobody ever filled out an application. And usually the people came to us from recommendations. Like Adele asked me to join, the former town clerk. And so she would bring people, or people would come to her and say, I know of this, Joe Smith needs help. Can you guys look at this person? Andy Dowd has given us people and said, and because we weren't getting very many people way back then, that's when we tended to start going and looking at the people who qualified for all the other stuff, the 41C thing.
Right.
So I always felt like I always was told when I joined that it was a committee to get the people who aren't getting picked up. That people who are falling through the cracks, the people who don't qualify for all these other programs, these were the people we were trying to help. So I get really nervous about making really concrete. I think guidelines are awesome, but I don't want to see us making these really concrete rules that are going to start eliminating people that we would have helped before. Does that make sense? I just get,
yeah.
And
I
just
always thought this
from a user perspective, I'll just tell you that I have known people who have looked at the criteria or have looked at, and they said, I don't qualify. So they don't even apply because they're $1 over, or they're whatever, they've owned for 4 years, or they've whatever it is. They say, these are the criteria, these are the rules. I'm not going to ask to break the rules. So I'm not even going to apply.
That's a super point. That's a super point.
Yeah.
So,
I guess that we can make them guidelines. I'm just really, I totally agree with you. That's what the way I want it to be, is I want people to be able, if you've lived there for 4.5 years, then we should know about that. I wouldn't want to penalize for somebody for not making it. That's kind of my point. How do we make them so that we can be helping people that need it and not scaring them away because of them, but don't make them too strict.
Can we make a motion on just this particular criteria item, and then we can move through the other ones and then add one at the end that says other extenuating circumstances, right? Like something that kind of is a catch-all, something like that.
We can do that. We can also, it says, the wording actually says to be eligible for this tax relief, and we could change that sentence. I don't have a good guidelines is a good word, but I can't figure out how to say that exactly.
Okay. So could we just move through this piece of criteria first and then go through the
Yes.
wording before whatnot? So what I'd like to do is just to make a motion. And of course, I understand that what we do is we make a motion, then it's seconded, and then we have discussion, and then we vote, right? And it can be amended, right? So if I say something and you guys have a better idea, you can always amend the motion, right?
Sure.
So I'd like to make a motion that we change criteria 1 to say owner occupied, including rent to own. And I'd like to suggest that we say 3 consecutive years, given that the last 2 years have been COVID. So I'd like to make that motion that we add in rent to own and that we change it from 5 to 3. So I suppose I'm looking for a second on that motion so that we could have a discussion and then amend or vote.
Can I vote? I'll second that motion. Am I a voting member or am I just,
You know,
I'm not, am I?
Sounds
Jeez.
good to me.
you are, you,
I'm
you,
not, right? I'm just a,
you are. I think that tradition, you know, I only listened in to Dan, my predecessor, a couple of times. So, yeah, go ahead.
all right, I'll second that motion.
Okay. So, let's discuss any, let me, so one thought about rent to own. I think it's really rare. And one of the things about having, it makes the criteria complicated to read. And the longer it is to read, the less likely someone's going to read the whole thing. So I feel like that's, you could say it instead something like you must occupy your residence. Well, but that throws in renters there. So, all right. So maybe in parentheses, you must own and occupy your residence, parentheses, including rent to own, and parentheses. Does that help a little? Because these applications really throw people off. All the applications that we use, you know, it's you have to make it as straightforward as you can. So
I completely agree with you, Julie. You know, the average reading level for somebody who receives public assistance is 5th grade reading level.
and then, yeah, oh, that makes sense. And then, you know, if you're at a time in your life, no matter what your age, when you're overwhelmed, the longer the paperwork is, the more daunting. And then there's like people like my mother lives in Michigan, but she's 83. She reads all the time for pleasure. She reads all the time. And she was a loan officer at her credit union, but you give her stuff now and she's just like, I don't want to deal with it. And our oldest people that have been in the senior exemption thing, that have been doing the 41C for years and years, just a couple of them, but they start giving up just at the thought of gathering the materials they need.
As a disabled person, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
It's been my experience as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, or if you all know, Jocelyn isn't here. So Jocelyn at the senior center, you know, I don't think I included her in the invitation. Shoot. Okay. Well, the original date that we were going to meet, she wasn't able to come, and she's not a voting member, but Jocelyn at the senior center will go to people's houses and help them find the documents they need, fill out the application, bring it to me, make copies for them. So she's a fantastic resource that a lot of towns don't have. They don't have a Jocelyn, and even if they have a Jocelyn, our Jocelyn is fantastic. So
It definitely is.
yeah.
So
Okay.
any other thoughts? You know, the second piece that was changing it to 3 years. So I didn't know if there were any other thoughts on that piece.
I think that's good.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion, then we can vote, and the way that we, double check me, the way that we are ending this is that the first criteria will be you must own and occupy your residence, parentheses, including rent to own, and parentheses, in Northborough for the past 3 consecutive years.
That is accurate.
Okay, all in favor? Cynthia,
Aye.
Muriel,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Julie, aye. Okay. I'm just going to write that down. Okay, of course, everything that we're doing right now, you'll be able to read in the minutes. So if I transcribe something wrong, you can correct me in the minutes next time. The second criteria we have is you or your spouse must be at least 60 years of age by January 1st. January 1st is the date because the value of a property is determined as of January 1st each year. So for the year that we're in, which is fiscal 22, it was the value of your property in January 1, 2021. That's why that's what the application says there now. It's just how the valuation process works. So, and then we have or have a state recognized disability. And what we have learned is that we couldn't even find a definition for state recognized. So I think that my thought is to just take out the words state recognized and say or have a disability, and then the nature, and you guys, please let me know what you think. The nature of the disability can be a part of the discussion on who we award and who we don't. What the disability means for them financially is really what I mean. So what do you think?
I would go along with that. If we can't find backup for what's called state recognized disability, why do we even have it in there?
Right.
I
So
actually
What would
have,
we have separately? I'm sorry, I missed the part. What would we have instead?
We just take out the word state recognized and just leave it or have a disability.
I actually have a list of state recognized criteria for disability from the mass.gov website.
Oh, I didn't know that. I've looked really hard. Great.
Yeah, I can scan it to everyone, but basically there's 3 criteria. It says it was under the employment rights of people with disabilities, mass.gov, individual with disability defined as someone with, number 1, a mental or physical impairment that limits one or more major life activities. Number 2 was an individual who has a history of such an impairment. And number 3 was an individual who is perceived, even erroneously, as having such an impairment.
Oh, isn't that interesting? I don't really
That's
know.
the definition of disability under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So
Yeah.
that's exactly what, if you're requesting an accommodation from an employer, yeah, that's exactly the language there.
Okay, so thinking of it, I just want to point out, so this is for getting a job, and
Yeah.
what we're doing is for tax relief. So we may or may not
Right.
choose the same thing. One possibility to say or have Cindy, you can tell us about wording, but have an ADA listed disability?
Recognized.
No.
No, so there's not a list like you have autism or you have something else. It's literally those 3 criteria, and that's actually written into law. That is what the law is right now for the Americans with Disabilities Act for the definition. That's the federal definition of disability. So, for example, if I have not been diagnosed with a hearing impairment, but I interact with people as if I had a hearing impairment and everybody regards me as having a hearing impairment, then I have a hearing impairment. I don't
That's a
actually
really,
I don't have to have a doctor's letter saying I've been diagnosed with a hearing impairment.
that's a really good example.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, I'm sorry, Muriel, were you going to say something?
No, prior to our finding out that there is a list of state recognized disabilities, I was going to say if there was not, get rid of state recognized, but now I think we should leave this wording in, actually, the way it currently reads.
I think it's kind of confusing though.
Do you?
Yeah, because I'll tell you why. You know, if you're a parent that has a child with a disability, there are certain categories of disabilities that get some benefits and certain categories of disabilities that don't. And so when we put in state recognized, parents start thinking along those lines. And so now they're going to go on a wild goose chase to try to find the list that's included or not
I see.
included. So I think it might be better to just say a disability as per the definition under the ADA. Because that's the Americans with Disabilities Act, because that's what the federal definition is. So that's what we're all beholden to.
Do we
And
want to
if it changes, then we don't have to
Yeah.
rewrite anything. We're just in alignment with that. And most people who have a disability understand what the ADA definition is.
Then
Okay.
that's good. I understand what you're saying, yeah. And you're closer to that whole issue than I am for sure. So, yeah, I think that would cover it fine, the way you've described it.
Yeah, I think that's a great change. Especially, Lisa found it. I didn't. I searched for a long time. I'm good at searching for things. So then you think about the people that are filling these out. I think the wonderful thing about how you're saying it, Cindy, is that it won't make people say, hey, I don't count. Or what is a state recognized? And then that blows their mind, like it kind of blew mine. Yeah, that's terrific. Okay, is there any more discussion?
Do you
Then
want a
I-
motion, Julie? Do you want a motion?
Yes.
Okay, so I make a motion to change the language state recognized disability to read ADA definition of disability. So the sentence would then read, let me just pull it up. The sentence would then read, you or your spouse must be at least 60 years old, 60 years of age by January 1st, 2020, or have a disability defined by, oh my God, I just said it better before, or a disability per the Americans with Disabilities Act definition. You have a disability
As-
per the Americans
as
with
per
Disabilities Act definition.
Yes.
God, I
Okay.
should have written all that out before I said it.
Well, yeah, you're just like me. Okay. Okay, as per, okay.
So then I need a second.
I seconded.
All in favor, Muriel,
I,
Lisa,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
and Julie, aye. Okay. All right, for the third one, the income cannot exceed 29,500 for an individual or 45,000 for a total household. I want to make one point, first of all. One of the ways this tax relief program is less lenient than the senior exemption is that with the senior exemption, we only have to look at the owner's income. And that means that if someone has their adult child living in their house, a lot of times, we never know if the adult child is contributing or not. A lot of times we hear that they're not. And that can be, the adult child could be perfectly capable of contributing, but doesn't, or they could be not very capable of contributing. There's the whole widespread range of stories that we've heard over the years. But my point is that this has always, if you have, there are people who, this includes the whole household income, not just the owner's income. So, so you can think about, I wish I'd kind of written this in an email in advance, but you can think about if you want that to stay the same, or if you want to, besides the monetary amounts, if you want that to stay the same, but that's for the household. And, you know, there's real pros and cons both ways. And I will let you guys discuss that. So maybe that's what we talk about first, if that aspect of it.
So I'm a numbers lady, right? I used to run like a data consulting group. So I love numbers, right? I love crunching numbers all the time. Don't like balancing my checkbook, but I love crunching numbers. So when I looked at this, the numbers that we have right now, the $29,000, $29,500, you know, if we do an average of 2,080 hours in a year of working, which, you know, that's a typical work year in the United States, unfortunately, that comes in at $14.18 per hour, which is actually below minimum wage. So that actually means that somebody would be making less than minimum wage. And I understand that what we're talking about here, though, is that this income might also be coming from people who are not working. So, you know, the hourly rate wouldn't apply. But for the people who are working, who are disabled, who are trying to make ends meet, or who are elderly and who are working, this level for an individual is below minimum wage. So I think that that's problematic. From a $45,000 from the household, one of our criteria was the person and their spouse. So let's just pretend it's just a two-party family, like a husband and wife. Then, and let's pretend that they were both working and they're both elderly or disabled or whatnot. Then that would mean that if we just evenly split the hourly rate between the two of them, that would mean that they were making $10.81 an hour. So that's well below our minimum wage of $14.25. So I think that that's important to consider. The other two things that I just want to throw out there for you guys to chew on is that, you know, when you have an adult disabled child and they qualify for SSI, so they've never worked before, they've never been able to pay into the system, they're not capable of working. In general, you're getting about $800. I think it's like $790 a month or something like that. You're getting about $800 a month. And that really doesn't cover any expenses. So what I would love to see is for us not to include the SSI income of anyone who is in the household. So whether that's the adult disabled child, or the person, SSI is capped at that $780 or whatever the number is today. And so I'd really love to see just us exclude that, so that we're not penalizing parents who are at home with their adult disabled child and who already can't make ends meet off of that $800 a month for a child that has extraordinary medical needs and whatnot. So those are just the three things I wanted to offer for you guys to consider.
So I'm just going to try to make sure I understand everything you're saying. So you're saying that the minimum amounts we have are probably too low?
Yes.
And that you're okay with including the entire household income, just make sure we exclude SSI, which I think that's great. Or are you not okay with?
I think it's a good step in the right direction.
Okay.
You know,
I think it's a good step in the right direction. Someone who, a family that used to live in town had an adult child who it didn't qualify because the household income, because that adult child worked as a bagger at a grocery store with a kind of, you know, they were able to work at a really low level, at really low pay. And that's what put the family over. So I don't know that adult child received SSI or not. And I'm just throwing these out there. I don't know how I feel about that. And I know how I feel about that one, but I'm going to give you another example that I don't know how I feel about. There are a lot of people who live with their parent or often their grandparent who are not making it in the world, and they don't qualify for SSI, and they're not making it because I don't know why. The traditional view is that they're not trying hard enough, but of course that's not what I think. So they're either not educated, severely depressed, oh, I forgot my last thing I was going to say, involved alcoholic, drug abuse. So those aren't, they can end up being SSI things, but they're not usually for a long time. And so, so the grandparent is taking care of this adult grandchild, and it's not falling into any other category. So that's why I personally am leaning away from household, but I don't know. I don't want to be one to decide.
What would you think of just that the income is the mortgage holder? Because that's the person who is actually responsible for paying the bill, right?
Right.
Or I guess people who don't have a mortgage would have to think of something else.
If I would prefer to go with owner on the deed, because I don't want to have to research mortgages.
Wise thought.
I wanted to add also, Cynthia, I think it was you had sent that the poverty guidelines, which I did like the idea of finding a percentage within the guidelines that I think the Fed set for poverty, so that we don't have to constantly be looking at these numbers and changing them. If we can agree to a category, whichever percentage, then it'll just go along and follow through each year based on what they present. I like that idea to not have to
That's a
keep
great
guessing
idea
with these numbers, but
I'll tell you that the about your thought, Lisa, is that the special education world, you have certain rights in Massachusetts if you're at or below 600% of poverty. So if we were to do that, a family that has disabled children would be like, oh, I'm familiar with this concept. It's the same rule. It would make a lot of sense to those families, there's 194,000 families in Massachusetts that fit that. It's about 18% of the population in Massachusetts. So I love your idea.
That was your idea. I stole that from your email. You sent that email with the poverty list, and I was like, oh, let me go look that up. And I like the idea of not having to mess with the numbers. And if it's a recognizable, thing for them, that's great, even better. It's just, for me, it's tough. Like, how are we going to decide what percent? 600% seems high to me, but when we can email out the chart and discuss that.
Yeah. Thinking of in one of the emails I sent you, I showed what we actually granted last year, and it's in line what we've been granting for people's income and asset amounts that we granted. It doesn't mean that we can't be. I feel like this committee, when I look back at the numbers, has been really conservative in their awards. And especially as we're talking today, who's even eligible in the first place. But, and following that train of thought, we're changing some of the eligibility. So we may have a whole different group of people applying, but as a first way to look at it, the percentage, if it's in the ballpark or a certain amount higher than what we have listed as 29.5 and 45, that's kind of first place to talk about it, like the percentage of the 600% or the whatever we choose. Does it give us?
Do you want me to tell you what the numbers are? So at 300% of poverty in Massachusetts, because the poverty levels are actually changed regionally. So in Massachusetts, 300% this year, is $40,770. That's for an
300%
individual.
is how much? 40,000?
40,770. That's 300% of the federal poverty guidelines for 2022. And then I don't know what you guys would consider a family, 3, 4, 2. I don't know what the number is, but I can read you any of those numbers.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because we're kind of opening it more up to families with children.
But what
Or, go ahead.
I'm confused because if you go back to our definition, we've said that you or your spouse must be 80 or disabled. The definition doesn't include disabled members of the family. So I'm getting confused.
That's a good point.
It was that because the household income, that's what we were talking about, household income before.
Right.
Right. So we were talking about if we're, so I'm thinking,
So for an individual, 29,500. So that's just that one person's money, right? They live alone, they have a house, right? And then if it was 300% of poverty, it's $40,770. And then a family's income is what we were talking about. Do we include everyone who lives in the building, or do we just include the people on the deed? I think that's a decision or a vote that we have to have. And then I was just asking, what level, how many people is a family?
so that's determined by whether we're considering a household or not, or if we're just doing the property owners.
Oh, yes, right. Because it was just a property owner, it would go to the individual number. Is that what you were trying to say, Jennifer? I still haven't finished my coffee this morning, so I'm a little slow.
I don't know. I'm just really confused. I can't even figure out. Let me think about what I thought that, I don't know. Never mind. I can't figure out how to say what I thought. Let me think about it for a bit. Just go ahead.
The
I
children follow, oh, sorry,
No,
Julie.
go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
think the children, like for her example of a disabled children falls into it because one of the spouses is now pulled out of the work environment, because even though they could, without the disabled child, make decent money and wouldn't even need to apply for this, but because of the disabled child, they're now home taking care of the child and not making income. Whereas now they've essentially become a one-person family because only the spouse is working when potentially they could have been a two-person. So now it's almost makes you feel like you should consider the household, because under normal circumstances, it would be a 3-person family, but one of them can't work now. So,
But that's not, yeah. I get that. I'm totally,
Yeah.
but that's not what our definition is. So if you're going to go
Right.
back to your definition in B, we have to adjust that, because now you're adding a whole nother layer on there, because we've said
True.
it has to be your spouse or you 60 or older, or you or your spouse are disabled.
gotcha.
Yes,
Our
yes.
definition doesn't. What's
I
that?
totally agree with you. We haven't changed that, right?
Okay.
We haven't changed it to include kids. We just we have that criteria. We agreed to that criteria. Yep. I was just making reference of something that people are used to seeing. That's all. So in terms of poverty levels, families with kids who have disabilities are used to seeing qualifications that say 600% of poverty and below. But if we did 300% of poverty, that's that 40,770 number. And if we did, if we did, what was I going to say? And so that would be just for individual. So a family, what I was just trying to say is like, what number is a family? And then I think that's what got us back to, are we just doing the deed owner, right? So if we were to just say, it doesn't have to be 300%, it could be 400, whatever. They publish charts every year that's at 300. So it's really easy to use the 300 chart, right? You don't have to do any calculations. So if we were to just say that the guideline is 300% of poverty as at the federal poverty level, then that we wouldn't have to adjust it every year. And then depending upon the number of people you claim in your household, that your number would just be in alignment with that. So if you had 6 people, you would just go to the chart for 300 and you would look at how much is it for 6 people.
Okay, so looking at it, so my thought is you look at if you're going to stick with household in the first place, it still must be that one of the owners, if you have a disabled child, whether they're adult or not, one of the owners must be 60. And then you're looking at, then I guess it
No,
doesn't.
No,
no,
the one,
I think you
no,
lost
you can be
me.
60 or
Or
disabled.
disabled.
No. But if you are a grandmother or a parent, and your disabled child lives with you,
That has nothing to do with anything. Right? So just that how many, so you're
maybe or if you're right, then
or you qualify because you're disabled yourself, the owner, right?
Right.
Disabled
Right.
myself. And then I would look at what is the income qualification. So I have 2 people in my household because I'm a grandmother raising a grandchild. So now I would be 300% at the 2 people level. That would be my income limit, 300% 2 people.
if we did household, but if we did owner, it's just you. It's just one person. And so then it's moot, what everything else is.
Right.
I think
Or
it's simpler.
or we could look at how many people, it's the qualification is owner, the income for owner, but that criteria is how many people in the house. So, for example, at the $40,000 level, yeah.
Okay, the problem with that is people are not honest about it.
Well, I mean,
We have a lot of that.
yeah, I mean,
So
you're never going to solve people being honest or not honest about anything, right? But I would just say that if
no, they have to, no, it's different. So I'm saying, I'm leaning toward getting rid of the household thing. You take out so many factors if it's just about the owner's income.
Makes it easier.
So then it doesn't matter that you have your granddaughter who, sometimes works at McDonald's and most of the time doesn't work and is on drugs. And it doesn't matter because this is your income and we don't have to try and get
yes,
proof.
simplify.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that, so in my mind, I had thought individual person, 300%, I'm on category, number of people in the household 1. So it's the $40,000. Then I'm the grandmother. There's 2 people in my house. So I still qualify. I'm the grandmother.
Oh.
But now 300% of poverty, if I look at the level for number 2, for 2 people in the, on the chart, 2 people is a different number. And I do think we want to do that because otherwise what we would be doing is we would be cutting off people who qualify right now. So we have $45,000 right now. We would be lowering that.
Could we do like, your taxes, the people you declare on your taxes? So if the grandmother is declaring her child on her taxes, then do we then say that that's a 2-income person versus if you have a grandmother who's got her adult grandson living with her who just decides he's just going to shovel snow in the winter and then party all summer because that's what he wants to do. We've had those situations before. He's perfectly capable of working. It's just, I get to live with grandma. So he wouldn't be counted on her taxes and we wouldn't have to worry about, do you know what I'm saying? Is that an idea or is that not a fair idea? I don't know.
I think that sounds great. It goes back to verifying stuff.
Right.
Yep. Makes it simple, makes it really simple.
Right. It does. So I don't have an idea. I mean, I understand what you're saying because, now I file singly and I used to file with my kids. I don't have an idea of do people with, does someone with an adult child or grandchild with an SSI living with them, does that show up on your taxes? Or do they file their own taxes? I don't know.
It all depends individually. So for example, like, this is not reality for my family, but let's say that my son had, was receiving SSI, or SSDI or something like that, but he was also the recipient of a trust fund, which wouldn't that be wonderful? And then he had some sort of income from the trust fund, like he would file separately because I have nothing to do with the trust, but if I wanted to claim him as independent, then I would file and claim him. There are pros and cons to doing that. It has to do with benefit qualifications.
Of course.
But there's plenty of people also whose high school kids are actually filing taxes because their high school kid is, having a job and whatnot. But I think it's a place to start. I don't think we have to have a perfect solution.
You're right. You're right.
I think Jennifer makes a great idea to keep it simple there. I think, and then we'll see what happens. And if this was the wrong move, then we adjust.
Right. Correct. Yes. Yes. We can always do it over. Okay. Who feels like they're clear enough to summarize it for a motion?
Not me.
I could try.
Okay.
And then you guys could just amend if I get it wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So I make a motion that the income qualification is based upon the deed owner's income only, as reflected in their taxes. And that so that's the first part, right? And that the income qualification levels are 300% of poverty, the federal poverty level, and in alignment with the number of dependents claimed on the taxes. Did I say that right, Jennifer?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Okay. So, so I have one.
You want to read it back and tweak it if needed?
I have one suggestion, or I have two comments, I mean. So one is that not everybody files income taxes. So what we do is we have them write to the IRS and get proof that they don't file.
Yeah, there's a form you can fill out. There's a
Yes, it's the same form. If you want to get like a copy of an old income tax thing, it's the same form that you fill out and the IRS writes back and says, no, this person did not file taxes for 2021. The only problem is that since COVID, it used to take a few weeks to turn around, and now it can be more than a half a year.
right, but the person can actually take the tax form and fill it out for zero filing and sign it and give it to us. I've done that before for my son. So they can actually fill out.
So there's kind of signing under penalty of perjury.
Yeah, so he can do the whole tax, we can fill out all of his information for him. And because he doesn't make enough money, he doesn't have to qualify, he doesn't have to pay taxes. And so then that filing, that form where it says he owes zero can be filed.
Oh, okay. I understand, but it's a real burden to make somebody do that who is no longer filing and is older. Whereas writing to the IRS, like we give them the form, we give them an envelope with the right address, we did, and then it comes back. Because they don't even have the paperwork together to fill out a tax form. I mean, the senior center will do it for people for free, but it's just not feasible.
Well,
So
go ahead, Jennifer.
So what information do you use to determine how they qualify for these different programs?
So for the 41C, for the income, and that's where, we're hoping to, so let me back up for a minute. We're hoping to get more people involved who aren't necessarily qualifying for the 41C because of their age for the senior exemption. But for those people, we get all of their financial statements. We get 2 months of every bank statement that they have. We get pension information, so we comb through. It's a really, really lot of work. We comb through their bank statements to see, okay, here's the Social Security deposit, and here's the deposit from a retirement account, and sometimes, so we have to go back each year to see what they've given us in the past, because they don't always remember everything that they have, and we have to ask them a ton of questions. Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? Do you have that? And they might say no, 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 and then the next year they turn in something we didn't know about in the past, and they've never really qualified, and now they got it in the past, but now they're done. So it's that's where I'm coming from. That's where I'm coming from.
How do we simplify it for you, Julie? Because we don't want to make it more burdensome. We want to make it easier for everyone.
It's not that. It's just that we do have a lot of people that don't file income tax, and so the best thing is to write to the state, but that has to be done early in the year. We are actually, we have a new person starting Monday. Yay. We've always sent out these applications for the people that we know of in mid-September. We try and get it so that we're behind on the EDTF this year, but that's okay. That's due to the short staffing in this office mainly. We will do everything earlier next year as we used to, but we're considering sending things out at the beginning of the summer. There are two problems with that. One is the fact that we do it in mid-September, and the deadline for not for this one, but for all the others is April 1st, means that we have about 7 months of having to work on this, and we don't have to work on it the rest of the time. So extending it to the summer, we haven't decided yet, but I am leaning that way, means that we're working on it a lot more. The other thing is that if you send someone an application in June, it's not technically due till April. I'm not sure what kind of response we'll get. It will give us more time to track down people's info when they return applications that don't have all the documents that we need. It will give us more time to find people too. But I think that, I don't know how that, I think it's worth the experiment of trying it, I guess. So back to, so in the sentence, which I don't have written word for word, but based on the owner's income only as of their tax return, I don't think we can say tax return. I think we can just say the owner's income. And then we'll do our best to find out what that income really is.
Okay, so should we restate the motion? And then we can have a second and decide what to do with it?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to get it right again. So I make a motion that we amend, is it criteria 3? I think it's criteria 3, right?
Yes.
C.
Say again?
Oh, it's C in the document. You're right.
C. Okay, C. To have the income criteria is determined based upon the deed owner's income only. And those who are eligible are individuals who are at or below 300% of poverty.
The federal poverty level.
Federal poverty limit for the taxation year, right? And the number of dependents claimed is the level that applies to the application. So somebody has 8 kids, that's the level that applies in the child.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes, I would suggest that because these are such, we can refine it. We can put it in the minutes as, Brian and I will do the minutes as best we can.
Yeah,
And then
make
we
it
can-
better sentences.
Yes, and we can do that when we vote on the minutes next time, rather than try to get every word right now.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think we need a second before we discuss and then vote.
I'll second it.
Okay, everyone in favor as the motion, for the motion as presented by Cindy. Muriel,
Yes, I.
Lisa,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Julie, aye. You guys, that was fantastic. That was really thorny and fantastic job. Okay, the last criteria I'm completely comfortable with. It is this, we put it in a number amount here, but it's the assessed value of your home cannot exceed. The number changes every year, and it is simply the number of the average single family home in Northborough. So if anybody wants it to be higher than that, but that's where we come up with that number. So in the past several years, so right now, the average single family home in Northborough, unfortunately, is 496,000. The year before it was 461. For 2 years before, it was 461. For the year before that, it was 447. The last time it was under 400 was 2016. Just to give you an idea of how it changes. It changes, 0 to 5% a year.
Could I just offer for a thought that, just as a mathematician, the median is often a better midpoint measure where there's a
Yes.
small number of outliers that skew the average.
Yes.
So if we have, there was like an $18 million home or something listed. It was like millions of dollars home that was listed on the north side. I kept looking at it on Zillow, like, oh, look at this house. but that's sort of like, when you use the
Agree.
median, that fixes the skewing of the average.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you guys publish the median number though. I don't want to make more work for you, but
No, I'm gonna go look. I have, I can find it quickly. I might even have it on a bulletin board here.
so what do you guys think? How many more snowstorms before the summer comes?
I didn't say it.
I know.
Okay. There's one, I don't have it there. There's one other place I can look quickly. I prefer it too. It's not, I wish we used it in a lot of places that we don't. So because we don't, then even though I calculate it once, I don't know where I keep it. So let me look really quickly.
So my thought is that maybe we change this criteria to just say that the, however it's worded right now, that the assessed value of your home cannot exceed the median value.
Right, and then on
for
the
that tax
application,
year.
right, and then on the application, we put the median value every year. So
Right. So the rule is just the median value, and then every year as it changes, the median value changes. Because I don't know about you guys, but like my house value went up crazy in COVID. I couldn't afford to buy this house.
That's right. That's right. And yes, and unfortunately,
And I don't want to move.
right. Well, they went up everywhere crazy, so it's not helpful. All right. I'm sorry. Just because if I can find this in 2 more minutes, then it will give you an idea. It's not that far off currently. But yeah, I actually think it's a little lower. You know what? Let's table this to deal with a real number. And, but you can think about, so the average, as Cynthia mentioned, is skewed by a few houses that are really high and the properties that are really low for some reason, like they're abandoned and we barely have any value on the house, but we have to keep some value on the house, even if it's not able to be renovated, because it has value as a footprint to rebuild if it's, say, too close to the property lines for today's rules. So it can skew either way. My gut is that we're going to be using a lower number then, if it's the median. And do we want to use a lower number? Right.
Yeah. So then I'd like to just make a motion that we change the sentence to say cannot exceed the average household value in Northborough as of the tax year. And then every year we can just tell people what the number is, that we don't have to, come back and be stuck with a number and be agonized about whether or not the number is right.
Right. That's a good, we call it the average single family home.
That's
And just for your information, it's one number that we'll use, but that's the value for homes and not condos, even though, of course, you own a condo too. And there are plenty of condos that are over 700,000 in value in this town. So it's not that they're not high, but this is a higher number also because it only takes into account houses and not condos. So, okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to add the words, the assessed value of your home cannot exceed the average single family home value of the current fiscal year, and then have the number each year.
Is it prior fiscal year? Not, or is it current? I'm confused about that. Taxation year?
It's current.
Okay, current.
It's current. We're using, so this is,
Current fiscal year.
this application is to get money off on fiscal 22. And so we've always used the current fiscal 22 value, but you get your income information from the tax return from the year before. It's just, the nature of the calendar. Do you want me to?
Can I ask what this seems really clear to me. You can't exceed this amount. And you say what it matches, blah, blah. So what are we changing? I'm just trying to understand what it is we're changing.
I think all we're doing is explaining where we get that number.
Okay. Isn't that already there? This amount matches the town's annual average single family home assessment.
I think they're just trying to remove the actual number and just put the criteria there as the average family home so that we don't have to keep revisiting it every year. That number will automatically change and that sentence will stay true.
I think we would keep the number in the sentence.
Oh, we would.
Yeah, so that
Okay.
for the applicant to know
what it is. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, and you also, it's like the same one as above when you do the 300%. I think we should put that number in too, whatever
Yes.
it is for that year. Because we
They won't
can't
know.
expect people to go look for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the
So
300,
the form could be updated. We could have an extra page on the back that we just attach,
Chart.
print out from the feds that just say, here's the chart.
yeah, we don't have anything on the back, so that's fine. So for item C, the income, the individual income, we can put that. And then for the total household, or not a household, but for the multiple owners, we can refer to the chart. So I'll mock that up for next time. Okay.
Great.
Okay. So then maybe change D to say the assessed value of your home cannot exceed blank dollars, comma, which is the FY22 average single family home value. Does that sound good?
Sure.
It makes it easy for, say we all decide to join a commune in Hawaii next week. And someone needs to come administer this. It tells them exactly what to do.
I like that plan, Julie.
Okay. Okay, so if anybody would like to make a motion,
I'll make a motion.
to change the sentence as presented, I should say.
Right.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Cindy,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Right.
Muriel,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Julie, aye. Okay, terrific. Okay. So. All right, so we can eliminate, no, we can't. We will still have, please list all who reside at this address, but we don't have to worry about them in a lot of cases. It'll help with the household income. Wait, do we have ages on there? Yeah, we do, the date of birth. Because, so to clarify, yeah, I guess I'm still stumbling. I'm trying to think of administering this, how, if you list your not grown children, then we know your household is 4 people. If you list your grown children, so you have your granddaughter living with you, you have the snow shoveling grandson who doesn't
Right.
work the
So
rest of the.
I think we voted that it would be who you claim as your dependents in
Thank you.
on
Thank
your
you.
tax form. So I think we should just change it to say dependents, or owners and dependents.
Owners and dependents. Great. Thank you.
But I tell you, I kind of want that kid that does the shoveling, because he can come live here for a few months every winter. He does the cat box, the garbage, and the shoveling. I'm good.
There you go. He's earned his keep.
As long as it doesn't make more mess. Yeah.
And cooks for himself, maybe.
Yeah. Work for me too would be nice. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that's good. Okay, some of these things that we have on page 2. So the annual household income, that helps them. I might add some things there that it helps them think through what they do and do not have. Okay, we don't ever actually have them. We tell people for this and other things that they don't need to fill this out. We just need all the documents for all these things. Because for all the other forms of tax relief, it's your gross income. So for your Social Security, if it says you get $17,000 a year, but you really only take home $12,000, we have to use the 17 for all the other. And so the extra money that people got for the checks people got for COVID or extra unemployment they got, those were all gross income. And we couldn't give them any breaks. So some people who didn't qualify for senior exemptions, two people that I know of that usually always qualify for senior exemption didn't get it this year because of extra COVID help. So I just thought I'd let you know that we are always looking at gross income. Then under assets, we do want them to list real estate because just in case they have some other property that they haven't told us about. It's an asset, and then that would then, you know, they can have really good reasons for not wanting to sell it, but it's an asset. It's a source of income for them eventually. But in terms of a mortgage, reverse mortgage, and line of credit, that's also on the senior exemption things. We don't care. Those are all in our minds types of loans. They're not true income. It doesn't matter to us what you're doing behind the scenes to try and make ends meet, whether you're responsible about it or whether you're doing it so that you can gamble, which we have one family like that. It doesn't matter. It's not part of the equation for the other tax relief. So I would just like to take off. I don't want people to have to spend the time looking up and telling us about their mortgage, reverse mortgage, or line of credit. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion to remove the request for information about mortgage, reverse mortgage, and equity lines of credit.
So I guess I have a question for you, so I can understand. So let's say you've got a house and it's worth, I don't know, let's make it up, $500,000, but you have a loan that's worth $600,000 because let's say the market tanks, right? So, you know, right now market's thriving, market tanks. So now you don't have a $600,000 asset or $500,000 asset. You actually are negative 100,000, right? So wouldn't we want to know that, or no, or we don't want to know that?
Here's why I think I didn't explain it well enough. Here's why. We don't count your house in the assets. We only count
Great. Okay. Thank you.
We only counted if you've got another house on the Cape that you weren't telling us about, which has happened, okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So let's say you're living in your house and you don't have a mortgage. So that's not an expense for you. You paid off your house rent free. You're just living here. You're paying your taxes. And then you've got somebody who, for whatever reason, had to take out another mortgage, and they're paying a large monthly payment on their house, which then takes down their income, right? If they don't have a very high,
it's gross income. That's why it's gross income. I think that's part of the reason why it's gross income. We're not looking at their expenses. We can look at their expenses, and if you guys want to include mortgage stuff on here, but no, we don't do it for the other programs because it's your gross income. It's not your expenses. It's not, we're not looking at whether you need a new roof or your roof is great. We're not looking at, you know, there is a section for medical expenses where we can, that's the only exception that we have, which we don't have on this form and we might want to add, but we do have it on the 41C form for medical expenses.
Should we be looking at net income instead of gross income?
The only problem with that is that's financially over my head.
Well, I mean, like, you know, line item, whatever it is on the tax form, net income.
Well, if you were looking at the mortgage stuff, that's over my head.
No, I meant when you're reporting, when we're looking at income. So, you know, when you know, whatever it is, you have income. So for example, I'll give you an example. There are disabled people who have SSDI who are, you know, trying to work, and to the extent that they have they have disability related expenses to have their job, right? Like whatever it is, I can't think of one right now off the top of my head. They're allowed to deduct that. So really, because they're really not making that income, what's happening is if they're supposed to be making $1,000 a month, but $1,000 a month, but
From their work, from their work or from the SSI?
from their work, but it costs them $500 a month to have the support that they need to go to work, then really they're only that net, the $500 that they really make after
Okay.
what to go to work is what their income is. And so the Social Security looks at just that net. And so when they fill out their form, they would fill out their SSDI amount that they got, they would fill out their income from their job doing whatever, and then they would have their $500 you know, weekly, monthly, whatever it costs them. So net, they would only have their Social Security plus the $500. So they're not peanut. So really what they're earning is net of what it costs them to try to work.
Yeah.
And so in that instance, I think net is a more fair way to look at it versus gross, because there's lots of people who are disabled who spend a lot of money to be able to work. So I just don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but I just want to offer that.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
I think it has to remain gross.
I think with pre-tax deductions and all kinds of other things that go into coming up with the net, I think it gets too cumbersome. I feel like gross is easier.
Okay. So with what Cindy said in mind, that could remain, it could be gross, but when we knew of special circumstances, when we knew of, you know, because we do deal with extenuating circumstances and we override our own criteria sometimes. So that could kind of go into that category. So backing up to the first page again, did we want to add E? I don't know how to say, let us know about other extenuating circumstances. But, or if we need to have an E, or if we just, that's what we do in this group, in this committee.
Can we put something like the committee reserves the right to hear extenuating circumstances or something? You know what I mean? Like kind of a general blanket
I
term,
like
or is
that.
too much?
Well, and I would, you know, offer them the opportunity to provide whatever information they
Right.
want, you know. So for example, if somebody has some sort of life-saving drug that's not covered by medical expenses, then it
Right.
costs $10,000 a month, and, you know, so net, they're really not making any money at all. You know, I think
Yeah.
we should know about that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so committee
As
reserves.
terrible as that is, that happens in the United States, that's just terrible. But
It
besides,
is, it's horrifying. It is, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. And
Yeah, we want to make it so that they, like Cindy said at the beginning, that people weren't filling out the application because they felt they didn't fit into some of these categories, which I feel bad about because we do look at all these exceptions. So if we can put something in there so that they fill it out. And is there some way, I'm still stuck on the mortgage thing, because I do think that some people are paying like a big mortgage payment, which really impacts how much their income. Do you know what I mean? If you're only making $29,000 and you're paying $1,000 of it out every year towards your mortgage payment, you're really down how much money you have. Do you know what I'm saying? So is there some way we can leave that in there that you fill that out if you want to fill it out, you know, optional if it's, because I remember we had a lady who had to put a new roof on her house, and that wiped out everything she had.
right.
And then she was trying to make her mortgage payment, and it was like, well, we gave her money to help her because there was just no way she was going to
Right.
get there. But if we didn't know that she had the
A
mortgage payment,
still. Okay, then let's just leave it there. Yeah, let's do that. Let's
Or
do that.
you could put optional fill out. I mean, I get you. I don't know.
I wouldn't, because I don't want to, I'm only thinking about, two things, administratively and confusion for them. Why would you, what, if you give them the choice, they want to know why they have the choice.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you don't, that was just my thinking. If you guys want to leave it out, that I'm fine with you leaving it out. It's just,
Well, you've convinced me to leave it in. How do other people feel?
Sure. Leave it
Okay.
in.
Okay.
I would agree too.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
support you, Jennifer.
um, we do ignore it again for the senior exemption, but that's because it doesn't have a bearing by state law. It doesn't have a bearing. I don't know why it's on the form. So, but it's a really good point, Jennifer. I'm pleased that we're leaving it there.
Julie, could I just ask a side question, and we can talk about this at a different time, but I'd
Sure.
love to be able to find a way to help you. But so I think the last time I checked, we have 17 languages in Northborough. Yeah. And it might be more now, but the last time I checked, it was 17 languages. And and I know that all of our stuff is in English. And I know that Google Translate doesn't really do a good job going from English to, so, like just even relying upon that, if you're a multilingual learner, can be difficult. So I just wonder if there's an opportunity, and again, we don't have to talk about it now, we can find some time later, but if there's an opportunity for us to make this form available in more than one language, so that we can just have it, or, somehow, even on the website, if we have it translated and then we just have it out there electronically in the other languages. There are people that I'm sure and there's people I know that would be happy to help us translate those documents.
Okay. I think that's a terrific idea. Yeah. Yeah. And we might get a little help from the senior center, but we might get help from Family and Youth Services. We might, and as the best way to approach this. Input from them is really what I mean. Not pawning it off on them. Okay, so I don't think that we need to vote since it's on the form. That we'll just retain the mortgages. We discussed it, we're leaving it, but we can go back to adding an E about reserving the right. And I really like how Lisa said it for my point of view, but then when Jennifer started talking, I realized, the committee reserves the right might stop people from reading further right there and about extenuating circumstances. I think it's a really great sentence for professionals, but not necessarily for the people filling out this form. So can someone, okay, that's my 2 cents worth. Now I've brought up a problem. Can someone else solve it?
Usually you write, is there anything else you want us to know? That's usually what you do. Is there anything else you want us to know?
Okay, so.
Or you write it as an invitation. Please use this space to let us know anything else you want us to know.
Okay. Please use the space if there's anything else you want us to know, because.
I wouldn't say because, I would just leave it there.
Well, here's
is there
what-
anything else you want us to consider?
Sure,
any
that's
other
a good way. I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so the only little piece of it that's missing in my mind is that this is the last thing. Maybe we want to put something first, or have a little statement at the top. We can go back to this when we're all done. People can mull it over. Like, here are our general criteria. The committee has the right to weigh them as they see fit. I don't want people to read it and say, oh, I didn't meet these other things, so why would I tell them anything else? I've already proven to myself that I don't meet it. So that's what I'm trying to address, right? What I want us to try to address.
Is there like a cover letter that we can give them with the form that kind of explains, please fill out this form, understand that there are extenuating, whatever way we want to word it, that urges them to fill out the form, even if they don't think they qualify, because there are things that we will consider outside the parameters of the form. Maybe we can present a cover letter with it.
Okay, I think I like that idea a lot. I think I would prefer
On the form.
having a paragraph at the start then, in lieu of a cover letter, for a number of reasons. One is that we do send out a cover letter with the 41C, and we have rewritten it so many different ways, and people who during that, we all have times that we're good at evaluating and other times where we're not. So if you get it the month that you're good at evaluating, you say, oh, this applies to me too. And if you get it another time, it blows your mind. So, but the main reason is that if this form is out there, they might come across the form without the cover letter.
Okay.
But then there's the general, then whatever we write, like as a paragraph at the top of this, can also be added to the cover letter that we send out with all the other exemption stuff. All right, so. I think that's it for the form. We can, so are we kind of agreed that I'll try, or Lisa and I will try together to write up a paragraph to cover. No, we'll still, maybe we have the paragraph and we still add E. Does that sound good?
I don't think we need both.
Okay.
I don't know.
I
how
would put it
anyone-
in the little paragraph you do at the beginning,
Right.
put anything else we consider, so that when they get to the guidelines, they realize, well, maybe those aren't written in stone.
Okay.
Because
Exactly.
if you do that at the end, when they're reading it, they're like, oh, I don't make it. They throw it to the side without reading all the way through. So if we can get their attention at the first thing they read, then maybe they'll just keep going. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like
Yes.
it. I like it. And I can leave. So we'll come up with a draft of the application for next year, and we can review it at our next meeting and finalize things. And I'll leave space with some lines for them to write more. Okay. One other thought is that I'm sorry, it's Friday, and I have a thought in this part of my brain that has to make it all the way to my mouth. So one other thought is that it's great that we have an application. It's a really great thing. We used to work without one. I love the changes that have been made today. I think everybody has contributed fantastically. And we can talk further about getting this out there for next year. But I still want to, if it's okay with the members, retain the, one of the ways that we find people is with the 41C application, which isn't due until April 1st. So we have a couple of people that we've just gotten their applications. As I said, I'm not quite prepared to present the new list. I still have to go through it one more time. Especially in light of the changes that we've made. But if there are people that qualify and all they've given us is the 41C, I would kind of like us to still consider people that we don't have an application for the current fiscal year, an EDTF application, and just use the 41C.
Haven't we always done that?
Yes, but we didn't,
Okay.
but in my time here, we weren't using an application at all. It was just last year for the first time. So I wanted to make sure that you all
Oh,
agree with
okay.
that. Okay,
Sure.
okay. Lisa, you're good with that too?
Yeah, sure. Whatever
So-
you guys
so
have been doing.
Two treasurers ago, she was fine with it. The last treasurer really wanted an application and you know, we can all vote
Oh,
both sides. So I just wanted to clear that. And okay,
So-
so go ahead.
I'm just wondering if we've done it all these years without them having to do an application and we're fine with that. Is there some way we could say on here, if you're applying for the 41C, you don't need to fill this out? Would that be less burdensome?
No, I think that it's a good, so first of all, in terms of streamlining, yes, it's less burdensome, but we do that kind of. We have them
Oh, okay.
sign it. Up until the change in vote today, that's where we've gotten household information that we haven't from the 41C. But we have them sign it, so they technically applied, but we don't make them fill it out.
Oh, okay.
You know, unless there are extenuating circumstances now. So, so one thing I think that we should consider and perhaps vote on is this was the application and these were the guidelines, but because they're ours and they're not state mandated, we've already voted to change the application for next year, but we haven't considered everyone who's applied yet. So I think, unless someone disagrees, I think we have the ability to say the guidelines that we've established today, we can use for the applications that we're going to review within the next week or two. Does that sound like it will let more people in under the umbrella?
Sure.
Sure. Sounds good to me.
Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion that we use the guidelines voted upon today to determine the eligibility of the FY22 applicants for the EDTF.
I second that motion.
Oh, no, I wasn't making the motion. I was.
Oh, I make the
entertaining-
motion. I make the
Thank you.
motion as stated.
Thank
I
you.
second it.
Okay. All in favor, Muriel,
Aye.
Lisa,
I,
Cindy,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
and Julie, aye. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so does anyone else, before we kind of try and choose a nearby date, I will be ready after this weekend with looking through all the applications that we have. I know it's really hard to get us together, but the sooner the better for the applicants. Is anybody, do people have like their calendars available? And
I'm old school. I do paper.
I would too if I didn't work in town hall. Kind of don't have a choice. Oops. Okay, so what Brian and I require is we have to have 48 hours, business hours notice to post an agenda. And we also have to reserve Zoom time, although Zoom time during day is much easier than Zoom time during night, because I guess it's finite. You wouldn't think it would be, but there's finite slots.
I have no restrictions. I can do whenever.
Okay. I'm looking at next week and I have something really important on Friday, so that I need to prepare for. So I would love it if we could meet during the week of March 20. You know what? I could even do it next week because I don't think it's going to take us a really long time. So the only time I can't but I can't do it on Friday, and that seems to be maybe the best day for people. Does someone
I
else?
can't do
Monday?
Yeah, I can't do Tuesdays and Thursdays. I babysit grandkids all day,
Okay, let's write that.
and I can't do Wednesday afternoons between 12 and 3.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So that leaves us Monday, Wednesday morning, Wednesday at 3.
I can't do Wednesday.
You can't do what?
I can't do Wednesday.
Okay, Wednesday's out.
I can do Friday morning next week, the 18th. Or I could do the 24th of March, Thursday, the 24th of March.
Jennifer can't do Thursdays.
That's right.
So
Or
we
I
can
could
do
do Wednesday, the 23rd in the late afternoon, but
at 3.
the 23rd. Yep.
I can do that.
Wait.
It might run over, and I can
can't.
take over from Brian when he leaves at 4. Lisa, is that okay with you?
I can't do Wednesday afternoons.
Oh, I thought
I
you
have a
did.
reoccurring meeting. I just didn't write it down.
Okay.
Julie, can you do Friday morning, like, and sneak it in?
I can't do the 18th, but I normally can. Yes.
Oh, okay, you can't do the 18th, okay.
No, I have a
The
consultant
25th
coming
then,
in.
is the 25th too late?
No, it's not too late. So the 25th, can everybody meet the 25th?
I have a hard stop at 9:45.
Okay, do we want to start at 8 a.m.? Would that be horrible?
On the
We're here at
18th.
7, Julie, so we can do an 8.
I know. That's why I'm, yes.
I can do whenever time. I can start whenever you want. That's
Okay. So Friday, March 25th, 8 a.m. to 9:45.
If we could do 9:30, that would be great, because I have a 2-hour presentation afterwards,
Whatever.
so I could use a
So-
comfort break at that point.
So what we'll do is we will do all the awards. And then if we have time to move on to other things, so we won't review this week's minutes until, we'll put the awards first.
Okay,
Okay, because then we can just have another meeting to review the minutes and finalize the application, and then to go on to talk about promoting this and maybe promoting both finding people and promoting getting more money for it. So that sounds really good. I think that what we've done today is really opened this up to more people who aren't necessarily elderly. And
yeah.
I think that's a really good thing. And I, once we have, I'm going to discuss it briefly with June David Force, who is the head of Family and Youth Services, just to see if she has any comments for us. And I'll talk to Jocelyn too.
Are they a 501(c)(3)? Family
Oh.
Youth Services. So is like I think Fun Care or whatever. What is it called? It used to be Youth Care. No, what is the before and after school program called?
Oh, Northborough Extended Day Program.
Extended Day Program. That's it. So I was just wondering. I know we're going to talk about this at a different meeting, but is there a 501(c) that we can run donations through?
I'd have to ask Jason. I can check on that.
Okay.
What is the point of that? I don't know
So-
anything about this kind of stuff.
So like a nonprofit often can write a grant for to fund
Oh.
different types of things. Like you can you can write a grant for $500 for St. Mary's Credit Union to donate $500, but it has to go to a 501(c). And then the 501(c) can say, the nonprofit can say, we're fulfilling our mission to serve underserved communities by providing this donation to Northborough.
Oh, okay.
So if we could partner with a nonprofit, they might be able to get some money to then give to us as a donation. So the bank donates it to a nonprofit, the nonprofit donates it to us in fulfillment of their mission.
Okay. I think that it's great. Lisa can find out. There might be, I love the idea in general. I have no idea what it means to the administration,
Okay.
with everything else that goes on in town. So, but that's a lovely idea.
Yeah, and
you
then
were
the
talking,
nonprofit would just give us a donation. They'd give the
Right.
town a donation. So it'd be one line item.
right. Yeah, I'm following that from, I think most of I worked at the library for a long time. So then the Friends of the Library can accept a donation too. Yeah. Okay. There's always, though, if the bank owns their real estate, they have the same checkoff box on the tax form, on the tax bill. So that's another way to think about it, possibly.
Okay.
If the bank leases the building, that's different. They don't directly get the tax bill. I don't know if they do or not, but okay. Okay, so we didn't even need to go into executive session today. Is there anything else anyone wants to discuss before we end?
You know what I kept saying? I was really confused about your assessed value thing. It's because I wasn't reading your application. I was reading your agenda. And the
Oh,
agenda, it says right on there, this amount matches the town's annual average single home assessment.
I put that on the
That's why I
agenda.
was acting so confused, but you already have it written. You don't need to rewrite it. Just copy it from there.
I understand. I put it on there so you guys would know why that number was there. Okay, that's funny. That's funny. I love it when I try and make things clear and I make it worse.
But it's all written for you when you write up the, you can just
Yes.
add that one little line right to the application.
Yes. Okay. So I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move
I'll
that
make a
we
motion
adjourn.
to adjourn. There you go. I second Jennifer's motion.
Okay. All in favor? Cindy,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Julie, aye. It looks like Muriel has dropped off. I don't see her on Zoom anymore. So, okay, we are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.
Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
you too.
See you in a couple weeks.
Bye.
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 Bye, Brian.